Good morning. I'm Rima Cameron, and I'm delighted to be here with you today on this beautiful day of August. I share leadership today of today's service with the Reverend Cindy Terlazzo, Hannah Belzer, the accompanist, Yvonne Duval, music director, Corey Ness, our director of religious exploration, song leader is Laura Shemick, and service tech is David Spear. Whether you are a member or a visitor joining us in person, or you are worshiping virtually, we are so happy that you've chosen to join us this morning. For our worshipers online, a Zoom online coffee hour will follow services starting at 11:30. For those here in person, we will have coffee hour in person in the common room downstairs. Please remember to look at the sign to help you with in-person coffee hour provided to you each Friday in the news you can use. We're so happy you've chosen to worship with us, and we welcome you to our fellowship hours and any other in-person or online activities held by UCH. In the spirit of the transformative power of community in all its forms, I'm so happy to welcome you to UCH. Whoever you are, wherever you live, whomever you love, whatever you do for a living, you are welcome at the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg.
I want to just acknowledge the fact that there was this wonderful event that happened yesterday. Several of you were there. I know that those of you who weren't will hear about it in some way or another. It was a coming together of 4 local congregations, and we were blessed with incredible weather, which certainly helped, but it was an opportunity to share ideas, to come together in fellowship and fun, and to be reminded that together we can do things that we're not able to do alone, whether that's as an individual person or an individual congregation. So there were a lot of seeds planted, and we'll see what kind of harvest we get from all of that. Our invitation to worship, the words are from Reverend Lynn Unger. "Breathe," said the wind. "How can I breathe at a time like this when the air is full of the smoke of burning tires, burning lives?" "Just breathe," the wind insisted. "Easy for you to say if the weight of injustice is not wrapped around your throat, cutting off all air." "I need you to breathe. I need you to breathe. Don't tell me to be calm when there are so many reasons to be angry, so much cause for despair." "I didn't say to be calm," said the wind. "I said to breathe." We are going to need a lot of air to make this hurricane of change together. Let us all take a deep breath as we enter in to worship together. And now the chalice lighting. Rima will light the chalice, and the words for the chalice lighting are from Reverend Molly Brewer. "My beloved people, I cannot pretend, and so I will not tell you that everything is okay right now, that there is no reason to be angry, that you must be optimistic or at peace. I cannot pretend these things, and so I will not tell them to you. But now, as we light the chalice, all I ask in this moment is that we remember the words of Reverend Rebecca Parker. There is a love. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all. By the light of our chalice, let us rest in this love." And now you're invited to rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 155 in the Grey Hymnal.
This is a very familiar hymn, "Circle Round for Freedom." We sang it yesterday, if you were at yesterday's festivities.
Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole. Circle around for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole. Circle around for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole.
And you're invited to be seated. So the time for all ages today is a demonstration. And as you may be aware, the topic of today is channeling inner fire for the common good. So these two bottles here are going to represent people. And we'll see what the demonstration is here, right? So what's inside these little side containers is a representation of all the things in the world that piss us off. The things that make us angry, the things that are annoying, the things that we just clench our fists about. And my observation of the world is that generally in this culture, we process our anger in one of two ways, and this is a generalization, but broadly speaking, I think that there are some people who, when they take all of the things that just are too much and take them inside, there's a certain kind of response that happens. So remember, what's going to be emptied into, well, I can do it up here. What's going to be emptied in here is all of the things that we find just too much. And hopefully this is going to work. So, oh, well, no, okay, so this is when some people respond in a way that they take all of this information in, all of these things that are annoying, and this energy goes into our bodies, but we don't know how to process it, and very often we end up suppressing it because we don't want to be seen as troublemakers. We don't want to be seen as not nice people. And a lot of times when that energy comes into our bodies and we don't connect that really righteous outrage, it ends up resulting in things like depression. It ends up resulting in different kinds of addiction because addictions are trying to suppress those feelings that are just too much to feel. So this is one way that happens. Another thing that can happen is when all of the troubles of the world pour into our bodies, like that, there is an eruption that happens. And we bubble and we churn, and if we don't find healthy ways to release that, all of that can explode in ways that end up being harmful to ourselves or to each other. And we'll see what this person decides to do. So, as you go throughout the day, that's some information to think about. How do you process anger? Is that coming into your system and sitting there? Are you pushing it down, trying to not feel the intensity of your feelings? Are you a reactive person who immediately goes to something that is going to be explosive and your rage spills over onto somebody and causes harm or ends up harming yourself? So that's the thought to carry as we sing our children off to their classrooms.
Now is the time for joys and sorrows. Please rise as you are able and come forward to put a stone in the water if you'd like, or you can come over here and light a candle. And if you really are moved, you can write it down, and then we'll read it when you're done. Thank you. I will go ahead and put another stone in and another candle for those joys and sorrows that are still too dear to speak about. Okay, so Laura Ettinger shares that she is recovering at home after a procedure. She thanks everyone for their support. Joy that my parents seem to be recovering from COVID with no problems. Sorrow that my in-laws are doing very poorly and weren't able to see them. That was from Bridget Parker. Thank you. We're holding you in our hearts. Thank you.
I invite you now into a time of meditation, reflection, of prayer. And the words that I'm sharing today are from an unknown author. They weren't unknown to themselves, but unknown to us. Lord, make me a channel of disturbance. Where there is apathy, let me provoke. Where there is compliance, let me bring questioning. Where there is silence, may I be a voice. Where there is too much comfort and too little action, grant disruption. Where there are doors closed and hearts locked, grant the willingness to listen. When laws dictate and pain is overlooked, when tradition speaks louder than need, grant that I may seek rather to do justice than to talk about it. Lord, make me a channel of disturbance so that I can be with as well as for the alienated, so that I am able to love the unlovable as well as the lovely, so that I may be a channel of disturbance. So, at this time, in the Chalice Lighting, we lifted up the words of Reverend Rebecca Parker as she reminded us that there is a love. And at this time, Laura is going to teach this to us.
Actually, Laura and Rima are going to teach this to you. Okay? This song, There Is a Love, may be familiar to many of you. We will sing it to you first, after I say what the words are, and then we will get you to sing the words to the second and third verses, all right? So the words are, there is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. And the second verse is quite similar to the first verse. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all. We rest in this love.
There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love.
There is a love holding me.
There is a love holding me.
There is a love holding all that I love.
There is a love holding all that I love.
There is a love holding all.
There is a love holding all.
I rest in this love.
I rest in this love.
There is a love holding us.
There is a love holding us.
There is a love holding all that we love.
There is a love holding all that we love.
There is a love holding all.
There is a love holding all.
We rest in this love.
We rest in this love.
I'm Barb Pierce, a longtime member of this congregation and a veteran of 50 years of the struggle for my right to my life. If you've been hearing, reading about the Side with Love branch of the UUA, I'm here to tell you a little bit more. Side with Love is asking that congregations form active responses to the nationwide crisis in reproductive justice. I've attended 3 training sessions to learn about this effort. Member Deborah Good and member Karen Sykes are getting involved with this too. We are the beginnings of a response team. We are looking for at least one other team member each. Reverend David is attending training directed at clergy along these lines. This is not totally reinventing the wheel as far as I can see. We have been involved in reproductive-related work for a good long time in this congregation under other names, including women's rights and abortion rights, now better known as reproductive justice, to recognize contributions of women of color to a broader understanding of this issue. Most importantly, including the need for access to health care, let alone access to abortion care. Our Black, brown, and indigenous communities, as well as LGBTQ+ people and their communities, struggle with access and have done so for many more years than my 50. Karen, Deborah, Reverend David, and I are being asked to organize the congregation for specific actions in support of abortion access and reproductive justice in our community. Postcarding efforts and meetings with legislators are just a sampling, and we've already been making use of input and resources of UU Justice PA's reproductive justice team. Stay tuned, because things are getting ugly across the nation with abortion bans, with increases in forced births, and with rising maternal mortality rates. Here's just one headline from August 6. Indiana passes near total abortion ban, the first state to do so post Roe v. Wade. Why am I talking about Indiana? Because just recently, a 10-year-old rape victim had to travel to Indianapolis for an abortion after she was denied one in her home state of Ohio. If that doesn't make you angry, I am at a loss for imagining what will. Here in PA, legislators are pushing for an amendment to the PA Constitution that states, quote, "There is no constitutional right to taxpayer-funded abortion or other right relating to abortion." I say again, stay tuned and get a move on.
Our reading today was written by Sean Fink, a mover and shaker who lives in York, PA, who will be leading a worship service for us in early April. The aim of divine rage is not vengeance, but to reorder the world. What if we began to collectively use a different language to define our anger? The anger that we shove down deep inside and hide. The anger at the systems that are failing us. And right now, there's plenty of anger sparking flames within us, and it's hard to hop on board the good vibes only mindset. Core's words tap into that anger by giving it the descriptor of divine rage. Sacred, holy, angelic, spiritual. As it turns out, This divine rage comes directly from the goddess Kali, the Dark Mother. She embodies rage to wipe out anything and everything that needs a fresh slate. We can embody Kali or our own inner rage when we are ready to create light out of darkness. I can think of no better time than right now to courageously turn up the volume on our divine rage and let it rise up and begin to burn away the ropes and chains of oppression, of capitalism, of greed, of polarization. What we would be left with then is love, divine love. It is time to let your inner rage turn and toss into the vast abyss of the everyday. This is how we create a revolution of love in its place, as creators, as entrepreneurs and leaders, as everyday human beings striving to bring peace to this weary world. This is how we become the courage makers we need to build a world where all beings can easily thrive and flourish. How do we do this? We do this mindfully, intentionally, and powerfully, one step at a time, one heavy foot in front of the other, one deep breath at a time, one kind, soft hand offered to someone who needs it, one long day at a time, followed by another and another, one angry moment at a time. We will follow the tiny breadcrumbs of love along the long, long road to justice and victory. And we will gather in our arms those who are willing and interested in this mission of compassion and bring them along with us, one newly opened heart at a time. Because change doesn't happen overnight, but it happens. It's waking up one tired, weary, and scared soul at a time, and then another, and then another. We'll get through, as we always have. Our divine love, made from the compost of our rage, will help us put into place what we need to create a world of peace for everyone who wants it. For now, take comfort in these words by D. Antoinette Foy. I used to extinguish under the weight of living, but one day I reached into my chest, dusted off my courage, and asked myself, what's your fire? And now we can please join in the unison affirmation. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is our gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to speak our truths in love, and to help one another. The Unitarian Church of Harrisburg is, as always, a freely gathered church of free people. The church is created, sustained, and supported by you. The ministry continues even whether the church building is open or closed. Each month, we share half of our Sunday plate with a local nonprofit organization. This month, we share the plate with the Joshua Group. The Joshua Group is a 501c3 organization focused on guiding at-risk youth in Allison Hill through mentoring and shaping positive role models. Since its inception in 1998, the Joshua Group has deeply ingrained itself into the fabric of the Allison Hill neighborhood, working tirelessly to reshape and improve the futures of children and youth in the area. Among other things, the organization operates the Joshua Learning Center at 1459 Market Street, where children and youth can participate in childhood to career educational programs. For those worshiping online, or for those here in person who wish to contribute online, please see the email with the link for today's service, or visit uchbg.org homepage for options for contributing. For those who are here in the sanctuary who wish to contribute in person, the collection plates will be passed around by today's ushers. Your financial support and commitment matter. Please consider giving what you were able.
So, I want to begin this morning by acknowledging, as I said earlier in the Time for All Ages, that as a culture, I don't believe that we're skilled in channeling our anger and outrage in ways that can ultimately be constructive. You might have a relationship with anger, with your own anger, with the anger of other people, that you find hard to deal with. And we're going to be exploring this topic today in a way that will ultimately lead us to a place where I hope we end up viewing anger as a source of divine love, as was so beautifully expressed in the reading that Rima offered just a moment ago. It said, "Our divine love is made from the compost of our rage." Our divine love is made from the compost of our rage, a source that can supply what we need to create a world of peace for everyone who wants it. With that in mind, I do want to invite you to take care of yourself as you need to. If you have memories of misguided anger that still harbor an open wound, get up, get a drink of water, be mindful of your breath, and let yourself be held in that love that is holding all of us. When I think about how I see anger and outrage expressed in the world, as our little Time for All Ages demonstrated, I find that many people in this culture generally inhabit one of two expressions. I see many people who are conflict avoidant. They may believe that the only way to be good is to subdue any wild and raging emotions that arise. They choose to be polite, to avoid making waves, so that the anger that they feel ends up being suppressed and ultimately turned inward. And it may show up, as I noted, as depression or through compulsive behaviors like overeating or other kinds of consumption that dull the intensity of feelings that are just too much to feel. And the other expression that we can see often is that of explosive reactivity, striking out in ways that can fuel harm to oneself or to others. And unfortunately, we see that way too often in the world today. This comes from people who feel unseen, unheard, and finally explode as a result of so much neglect and misunderstanding. Those who are influenced by the barking heads, who intentionally use provocative language and half-truths to inflame others. They are the people for whom others try to walk around softly when they're near them, so as to not spark a reaction that results in abusive language or physical outbursts. What gives me hope, though, is that there is a middle path. There are ways to transform the anger and outrage that we feel from the injustices in the world into a clarion call that inspires creative response rather than destructive outcomes. And I have to tell you that I have a fraught relationship with anger, with my own anger, with the anger of other people. I internalized messages growing up in ways that led me to be afraid from anger. I hid when anger exploded in my household. I learned that it was safer to be polite, to be nice, and to not make waves. And without a doubt, I continue to be a work in progress. But as I have grown, I have seen both the negative impact that this way of being has had on me, as well as the ways that my anger can be channeled for good. I'm inspired by those who channel their anger in an energy that can serve the common good. I'm inspired by those who are able to transform such powerful, raw emotions into actions that can move mountains. I spent some time with my daughter recently. She has a little 4-year-old child, and as young children are wont to do, they can have big emotions that are difficult to be with, difficult to know what to do with, difficult to hold space for. And I have been so impressed by my daughter because she has the capacity to hold her child when she is sprawled out on the floor, when she's throwing things, when she's screaming things in public. And she lets her know that she is loved for who she is, that her anger is okay, and that there are other ways that we can look at this. And I think about, what if that had been my message? How would I have maybe navigated my life differently? To know that these big, strong emotions are part of being human, and they are something that we want to figure out how to channel so that they're not hurting us, they're not hurting the store clerk in the checkout line. There are ways to do it, and I'm so impressed when I see those kinds of messages being given. And I don't know what messages you might have received, but as a culture, we haven't been skilled. We haven't been taught how to do that well. I've come to believe that it is okay to get mad. And not only is it okay, it's normal and it's healthy to sometimes be furious. I don't know that it's good to walk around furious all the time, but it's normal and healthy to sometimes be furious, especially at injustice and bad faith. Reverend Audette Fulbright says that the key is to process anger, let it move through and out into considered action or safe expression, or to simply let yourself sit with your anger and let it be your teacher. She encourages us to get to understand our anger so it does not consume us, but instead becomes an energy that can lead us onward. As long as I continue to fear anger, to avoid my anger, I'm unable to learn anything my anger may be able to teach me. I think it's important to remember that in most cases, the people who have actually changed the world were people who were pissed off. People who were pissed off enough about something that they stopped trying to manage their anger, they stopped trying to feel it, they stopped struggling with it. Instead, they found ways to name it, embrace it. They found ways to harness their anger to join with others and to unleash that collective anger in creative ways that can lead to change. And there's a quote by Dr. King that you may be familiar with, one that I really like a lot. He says, "Modern psychology has a word that is probably used more than any other word in modern psychology. It's the word maladjusted. Certainly, we all want to avoid the maladjusted life. In order to have a real adjustment within our personalities, we all want to have a well-adjusted life so that we don't have a neurotic personality." He goes on to say, "But I say to you, there are certain things in our nation and in the world to which I am proud to be maladjusted to, and which I hope that all people of goodwill will be maladjusted to as well. I say very honestly that I never intend to become adjusted to segregation and discrimination. I never intend to become adjusted to religious bigotry. I never intend to adjust myself to economic conditions that will take the necessities from the many to give luxuries to the few. I never intend to adjust myself to the madness of militarism, to self-defeating effects of physical violence." He concludes by saying, in other words, I am about convinced now that there is a need for a new organization in the world. The International Association for the Advancement of Creative Maladjustment. Men and women who will be as maladjusted as the prophet Amos, who in the midst of the injustices of his day could cry out in words that echo across centuries, Let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. True then, true today. Yep. There is a need for a new organization in the world. The International Association for the Advancement of Creative Maladjustment. Sign up here. Don't we all need to be reminded again and again that being maladjusted to the madness of militarism, to discrimination, to bigotry, to corrosive capitalism, and all things that stand in opposition to seeing the inherent worth of others is essential if we truly want to realize the beloved community? Social activist Valerie Carr says, the opposite of love is not rage. The opposite of love is indifference. Love engages all of our emotions. Joy is the gift of love. Grief is the price of love. Anger is the force that protects that which is loved. We cannot access the depth of loving ourselves or others without our rage. And she goes on to say, what does it mean to be a warrior sage for a new time? Who will you fight for? What will you risk? It begins with honoring that fight impulse within you. Think about what breaks your heart. Notice what it feels like to have your fists clenched, your jaw tight, your pulse quickened. Notice what it feels like to want to fight back. Honor that in yourself. You are alive and have something worth fighting for. Now, here comes the second moment. How will you channel that into something that delivers life instead of death? Breathe. Think. Then choose. You don't have to know the answers now. You just have to be ready for the moment when the world says, now. Let's pause for a moment and let's take a collective breath. In and out. We need to breathe. We need a lot of air to make a hurricane of change together. In and out. In and out. So now, I'm going to invite us to do something that might be a little risky. It might feel a little bit out of character for a UU service. But I think if we let ourselves jump in, we might be surprised by what we find. Let's give ourselves permission to name those things that piss us off. Let's name the injustices we see in the world. We cannot change the things we cannot give name to. Let this be a teaching moment. And I'm going to start off. And so I'm going to invite all of you in person here to shout out those things. And anyone who is viewing on home, you can shout as loud as you want to about whatever is pissing you off right now. And this is the risky part, right? Because we don't do this a lot. But don't worry if you're shouting over each other. Anger is like that. Big things, small things. We can't change what we can't name. And remember that anger is a force that protects that which we love. So here goes. Here's one of my first ones. It makes my blood boil that our health system is so screwed up. Even with decent insurance, I recently paid $375 for a simple blood test, and that was after insurance, out of my pocket. So somebody, what are you pissed off about today? Idiot legislators. Yes. Say that again. Reproductive injustice. I am angry beyond at all the decisions being made by the Supreme Court, decisions that will harm so many for such a very long time unless we rise up and demand changes to broken systems. Okay, who else? I know there are other people pissed off. Yeah, lots of them. Again. Inequality. Donald Trump. Trumpism, yep. I hate to imagine the world that my grandchildren are inheriting. I wonder, will there be a habitable planet for them to live in? More. What else? Yes. Climate change. Sexual assault and child abuse. Yes, cruelty to animals. Millionaires. Billionaires. Yes. Greed. Underpaid teachers. I get so angry at the stupidity and destruction of war. How is it possible that there can even be a somewhat casual discussion about the possibility of nuclear war? I'm enraged that we have become a nation of consumers rather than compassionate citizens. More. Anybody else? Yes. Homelessness and hunger. Ableism. Gun violence. All violence. I'm furious that our world has become so polarized, that Christian nationalism is rearing its ugly head, that the teachings of Christ are being manipulated to incite division, suspicion, violence. Breathe with me. Long, slow breaths. Breathe in. Breathe out. Divine love is made from the compost of our rage. Breathe in. Breathe out. The key is to process anger, let it move through you and out again. So now that we've named some of the things that anger us, let's also name ways that we will channel this most powerful energy into service for the common of good. And again, we'll just shout it out. I will embrace my anger when it arises. I will find ways to ask what it can teach me. What will you do? Vote. Yes. Yes. I will keep educating myself about those running for elected office, and I will support those who are working to serve the common good. Anybody else? What are you going to do? Peacefully protest. Help at the voting booth. Yeah, be unashamedly different. Yes. I will use my voice to speak out against the ills of the world. I will join with others to find ways to be creatively maladjusted. What else? What else? Attend local school board meetings. I will show up. I will extend myself to those who need a soft hand to hold. I will let my anger move through me and out into considered actions and safe expressions. Anyone else? What are you going to do?
Listen and look for commonality.
Look for commonality and listen. I will practice gratitude. I will remember to laugh. I will remember that love holds everything. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. For all who are quick to anger, may you use that fiery energy in the service of loving, creative, powerful efforts toward change for the common good. For those who have been wounded by anger, who swallow their own fire, may you find ways to kindle those sparks of recognition at the ills of the world and use the passion that arises to correct that which stands in opposition to love. May we commit ourselves to trusting the fire within. May we all recognize the gift of action that anger can offer us. May we use it with wisdom and care. And now, you're invited to rise in spirit or body for the closing hymn, The Fire of Commitment, which is hymn 1028 in the Teal Hymnal.
There's laughter at the name that burns our beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits, and from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of a living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, we will live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within. Then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
Yeah, the fire of commitment. So words to extinguish the chalice by today are by the Reverend Otis Moss III. If you dance long enough, weeping may endure for a night, but joy will come in the morning. It's the job of every preacher to teach the congregation to dance in the dark. Do not let the darkness find its way in you, but dance in the dark. Let us turn our anger, our outrage into a dance of liberation as we move through the darkness of these times. Don't let anyone rob you of that joy, and use that fire to join with others. May it be so. And at this time, I believe we end up having coffee hour, right? All right.